Welcome, Divine Hearts, and thank you so much for joining us. This week we have a very luminous guest. He is Lowell Johnson, and Lowell is a Lemurian emissary. He has had incredible experiences connecting with the Lemurian beings that reside within the city of Telos in Mount Shasta in California. And due to these experiences, he has been generously sharing them with all who are ready to see and hear, and has therefore become a Lemurian emissary. He is also now too stepping into higher roles from within himself, becoming an ascension guide, here to assist others to hold more light, more love, more new earth frequencies from within themselves, to be able to activate and access higher awareness and multi-dimensional experiences for themselves. So thank you so much, Lowell, for being so generous with your time and your experiences with us here today.
Thank you for inviting me, and I don't know that it's a choice for me anymore. I think I have a soul agreement obligation I made to be here now, awaken the way that I did, and then as quickly as I can help others figure out what I figured out, feel what I feel, have restored to them whatever powers. And you should look at it that way, because you're a master of many things and very few of you look at yourselves as such. However, having said that, why the progression of things that happen? And we always begin with Telos, because it just resonates with so many people and Lemurians. You're the second person recently that's referred to me as a Lemurian emissary. And although I know in my subconscious, yes, that's who you are, I had to hear someone else say it, and it had to come twice from outside sources for me to really digest that. And yes, all of it led back to after these miraculous things happen. You want to understand why, how. Forget for the moment, let's put aside why me. Let's just figure out, why does this happen to anybody? It wasn't until months later when dots connected and other guides, crossed my path with their part of the puzzle, so that all the dots could be connected, and where I saw I was being led finally revealed itself. And it wasn't where I began on Saturday mentoring people through the Ascension Guide. It all led me back to that, because each time I have been asked, and on 2, 3 separate interviews, I've been asked, what do you do with that information? And even I know, I was a leader and I've been a teacher all my life. What am I supposed to do with what I know? I know I'm not the only one. I'm supposed to help others understand what it is that I now comprehend. How does that happen? At first, it's a very personal thing to me to understand your ability to reach into other dimensions and have experiences like Telos. When that finally hits your awareness, then Telos is a magnificent thing. And yes, when asked, can you go there again? Anytime I wish now. That's a dimensional ride that I can take whenever I wish to. But what's going on here, and the purpose we're all serving, is that we all know we showed up now to assist Gaia, especially first, make the transition from 3 to 4. She's already squeezed halfway through the hourglass, if you want to look at it that way. We're far into the process. There's no going back. And this wasn't conditional on human consciousness rising as a collective? No, we all know that this is a cosmic cycle. And we just happen to time this particular incarnation to come back now at this specific time while this shift was about to take place so that we could assist others. And last fall, when I was getting a little frustrated with the process, okay, I got all these tools back at my disposal and they're cool. Oh man, if I can just ascend, just take me. They said, no. That was not the deal you made. You asked to have some of these powers restored so that you could assist others. So here you go, pal. Here's the time. Here are your tools. Now you have to teach others that they're not your tools, that they need to use, Lowell. They're not borrowing tools from you like going to Ace Hardware. You have to convince them when they get that trigger that they're inside them just like me. But they have new tools, cool tools. Everything that we've experienced in every incarnation was just planted in our little akashas and has been waiting along the way to be triggered back open by some phenomenon along the way. And we knew when we were coming back this time that we were going to plant seeds for ourselves so that when a word was uttered, or a song was heard, or a color was seen, that would trigger some kind of memory, because that is our DNA is making that happen again. Like this imprint has been there, and we wandered around in this incarnation trying to figure out, now, where the heck did I leave that key? That's what the journey's been about. So when the universe hits you upside the head with these ethereal 2x4s and things to get your attention so that you understand that the things that they're showing are things that you're actually manifesting, right? You're the co-creator here. So light worker, each time you travel and you go to places like Shasta, you're not a seeker of what that place has to offer. Because when you go there as a light worker, your job is to help plant your light, right? Yes, you're that conduit right now to bring light while you're here and channel it through you, anchor it to guide. That's your job. So it's always an energy exchange, always. We have important code we carry. And when we share it with Gaia and spread it through the planet, that's just great. And remember, our Akashic records are changing every time you have a new thought. So there are contributions that are being made constantly.
Yes. And I feel that by you having had this beautiful experience or experiences and sharing them so generously, that in itself too is an activation for others, because it is an inspiration. It is showing a pathway that's possible for others to be able to access. And so I wanted to ask you, because I feel it is key, you because we are vibrational beings, and so before we go into these magical experiences that you have had, that you talk a little bit about where you were at in frequency terms before you received and had those experiences, where you were at in heart awareness and in consciousness, because you had already evolved in some sense in frequency terms. You were no longer living and energetically playing in a denser frequency. You had already moved out of that to be able to access these higher experiences.
That's a good description of the scene at that particular time. My awareness was like a lightning bolt. It was a snap. It wasn't like I had an awareness 5 years ago, and I've been following this path ever since. This is like 2 years old, Lois. Oh my goodness. So, and when I notice how quickly and rapidly it's happening within my timeline, the people that have been reaching out to me, I mean, they're on the same timeline. Things are happening like, oh my goodness. It's quick. So when I remind myself of that, I still have to calm myself down because I'm a Capricorn and we need to get shit done like now. There is a process to all of it. There's an unfolding that needs to take place where I thought I would be spending time helping others understand it and mentoring them. I began to say before that it's a very personal process to me. And I understand my journey is different than everybody else's. So allowing for that, I always thought that everything was going to come from within us. And in fact, it does. However, I can't neglect that I've had guides placed in front of me that have offered me information, have they not? So I can't rule out that the things that I learned had no value to somebody else. Because in my mind, I was telling myself that for a while. That's not at all true. Lowell, my goodness, you have all kinds of things to share. That's why you're here. People influenced you. There were influences that helped you master those parts of yourself that you were remastered. Now it's your job to assist others who feel this light that's inside of them that they didn't understand where it's coming from. When they understand the mechanics of it, then that's when their awareness kicks in and the divinity really speaks to me. That's like 2 years old. And I know that there are people in this community that I've met along the way over the last 2 years that have been doing this for 20 years. Their path is set. I know some of them look at me and go, excuse me? You've been doing this for how long and what happened to you? It's not just me. I see people in your position being archivists of records of these kind of conversations, interactions between the people that you know that have had remarkable experiences. There's Reuben Langdon, he's the same. There's Suzanne Ross, there's the same. There's Steve. I'll think of his name out of New York as well, and so I'm not doing him justice, but goodness gracious, there are lots of that now have archives of information of people who have had incredible experiences. They're no longer to be ignored. They're no longer to be covered up. It had been speculated that when my guide came along, made herself physically known and put me through ceremonies before I knew what was going on. But that was cast in a plan that I understood I was going to participate in. And just the outcome was supposed to be what it was supposed to be. Again, that type of experience in the end, when I got to buddy up with 6-dimensional light beings, how do you get in that place? How do you sit in front of crystal skulls? I was telling somebody about it today. And an opportunity when I met Reuben not long ago, last year, that somehow my paths crossed with the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull and Mr. Bill Holman. Yeah, I got to sit in front of it within that 4-day period on 3 different occasions. Who gets to do that? Oh my goodness. So there were things that were meant for me that others weren't going to have. And again, this was kind of part of the mindset I had where, yeah, what good is telling my story to somebody else when it's so different from everybody else? And then really, as I described 2 days ago, frankly, some thunderbolt struck and said, others taught you. So now it's time for you to share what we've all gave you, master in whatever regard you think, with others to help them with their masteries. So here we go.
Oh, it's such an exciting new phase for you. And it's going to be so enriching and activating for all who participate in these sessions with you too. It's going to be incredible. So yes. Let's go to your first magical experience. And I'm going to take you to the side of the mountain, and you had taken a trek to Mount Shastina, which is part of Mount Shasta. And yes. So you were resting by the side of the mountain there, and you had originally planned to spend maybe a week in Mount Shasta area, but you ended up being there for nearly 5 weeks or a little bit longer.
Right,
and so
true.
This experience came towards the end of that time frame for you. So you're sitting at the side of this mountain, and then the mountain opens up to you. You take us on this journey from there onwards.
Yeah, this was one of those hikes I was going to take off in kind of a different direction. Now, there was a trail that fell off from, this is in the area of Old Ski Bowl Trail. So it's as high as you can drive. There's the parking lot at the top. And then there are actually 3 really wonderful trails from there. One that goes off to the east side of the mountain, and then one that goes up almost, there had been an avalanche there caused by the glaciers eons ago. And that's how you can kind of see this area has been carved out by that. Well, lots of people follow that trail and decide how high up the mountain peak they want to go on Shasta. Next to it is Shastina, her little sister. She's a little cone off to the left, and there is a trail that goes there, but it's seldom at all anybody goes there. The reason I chose that path is a few days earlier, I had sat at, there's a few picnic tables there, and I sat to just figure out what I was going to do for the next few days. And I saw some areas because the sun was almost straight up, almost up. And so shadows began to cast on the side of Shastina, and it almost looked like, no, that could be a cave opening. And so I thought, well, that can't be that far a hike. 40 minutes, 45 minutes to get there. It's a little off trail, but it'd be worth to go over and hike. So the day that all this happened, that kind of set the stage. I started on that trail. Nobody was there. There were plenty of people there. It was a Sunday. And in July, parking lot was full. There were couples and families going in different directions. No one else kind of went where I went. And then I was going to hike off trail and up the hill a little bit. So when I got over there, I could already sense energetic little portals as I was passing through that. And you could almost see that there was almost some cosmically comical rock circlings with a tree in the middle of it. Okay, well, that made sense and easy to find. As I was going up this side of the mountain, I found this one, and I stood there and just to take in the energy. So I thought, well, I'm going to exchange, some light while I'm here. And while I was getting settled here, I looked over to my left, and just off to the left, and a little bit higher, there's another one that looks just like this. So I moved over to see what that was like. And yes, I kind of got another vibe here, a little bit different, but another vibe. And I knew I was stepping into something. And as I was getting used to this, now I'm almost against the face of the mountain. And I can see like an outcropping. There's some rocks that are coming out, and it almost looks like, you can get behind that. So I went from where I was and up to explore this area. So the mountain's here, and it's got dried brush that's growing against it like ivy would be. And from here, there's a stone a little higher than my inseam. So I'm like a 36 inseam. It was a little higher than that, but it was narrow so you could get over it. Then there was a big boulder in front of that and another one on front of that. And inside here, there's maybe like 8 square feet. So you could get inside. When I got inside and looked in that direction, I could see the parking lot off in the distance where I came from. The path up here, there was nobody in the area, this part of it, but me. And so I had the space to myself. So I did what I always do, and I planned my life here and started looking back in that direction. And then I sat down. I was going to have some water, going to have some grapes. I had my earpods in, so I was listening to music on my iPad or my iPhone. As I was sitting there, I had just finished the grapes, put my water away, and it seemed as though there was like a shadow that was coming up like next to me, like cast by the sun, and a canopy almost like coming over me. And as I'm trying to understand the changes in this phenomenon, I feel cool air from behind me. Well, when I turned around where I was sitting a moment ago against the rock, against the mountain, there's an opening. that at the peak is kind of circular. And at the peak, it's got to be, maybe 9 feet at the top. And as I turned around and stood up to take a look and my eyes adjusted, you could tell that there was a little bit of a rise from where I was. So you'd step up to this place and then it seemed to go down. As my eyes adjusted, I could tell down wherever this was. Later, it certainly made sense. I was in a lava tube because this is a connection to lava tubes underneath the surface. It looked like I could see somebody down there. And the next thing that occurred to me is somebody said, "Do you wish to see Telos?" He had kind of a British / Australian kind of patter to his language, but that was the only thing that made it different. He was speaking in English that I could understand, and it wasn't a language that I didn't know. When he said that, my heart raced a little. But the reason I had come to Shasta was in hopes of bumping into an ascended master. That's why I wandered out in the woods by myself. Man, I just set the stage. There's nobody else around, guys. Now's the time. We can connect. I remember the Saint Germain story. That's not legend. That happened. So it's likely it happens to others too. Why not me? I'm ready. I can't say that I satisfied the regimens of a spiritual, whatever it takes to normally get there, the way that we just were conditioned. But I was here now, and my heart was open to something I knew was bigger and better. So I agreed. As I stepped up and started to walk down, what I could make out was it looked like there was somebody down there was about my height. I'm 6 feet tall. As my eyes adjusted and I started to walk down this little incline, and he's maybe 30 feet down. So it's a little darker there, and sunlight's behind me. But when I get closer, this guy is not my height. He's at least 8 feet tall. And he looks very Scandinavian to me. When people have asked me to remember that there's more detail that just comes up, they just had flawless. They were flawless beings. He had long blonde hair. He wore a white, call it a frock, but he had different colored ribbons that were on. I call them ribbons because I don't know if that's what they were either. And I could only wonder whether that was indicative of some rank that he held, or whether that was, some kind of Lemurian bling. Maybe that's how they dress themselves up. I didn't know anything else. So when I approached him, he said, "You can call me Alex." And I said, "Well, that'll be easy to remember. That's my son's name." He said, "Yeah, we know all about your son, Alex. Follow me." So as we began walking down this incline, you can see there's some light at the bottom of wherever we're heading. And as we got closer, it got brighter. He began to tell me about the administration. The council described, how it was set up. Didn't talk about who they were, but there are 13 people that make up the council, 6 masculine, 6 feminine for balance, and Adama, who sits as the 13th and the head priest. As we got closer to the bottom, and this light became an area now, I can only describe it as like a staging area. So if they're in the future, if there are spaceports, maybe this is something like that. But when we got down into this area, immediately it opened up. It was easy to see, so it was well lit, and there were 5 more tubes off in front of us. Immediately left of us was a platform that I can't explain what the material was. I would like to say it was crystal, but I can't say that either. I don't know. It wasn't wood or metal or any composite, but it was about 6 feet by 6 feet. And it appeared to were like 2 bucket seats. And I was looking at this one, there was another one off to the left over there. And if I looked off to the right, there was actually another one over there. Well, by the time I took all that in, Alex is sitting on the other side, and he directed me to take a seat next to him. And as soon as I did, this thing levitated, and it moved toward the middle, too, in front of us. Now, as it's moving, you would think that third dimensionally, there's some propulsion. I should feel wind going by me. There's nothing like that. I know I'm moving. And I get the sensation because I'm taking in new content around me as I'm going along, but I don't feel the sensation of wind or anything like that. As we get closer to the other side, now there's light coming from that end, and you can begin to see the walls and whatever rock or crystal is in it. Every time you move a little bit, the light refraction changes. You're like in a kaleidoscope, and it's hypnotic. I would have stayed in there all day, but when I got to what I thought was the best part, all of a sudden it opened up, and we elevated ourselves to, if you've seen cityscape photographs, that was the view I had of Telos, my first shot. So we elevated above it. The city is circular in design. In the middle is a white temple with a capstone that I learned was given to them by Venus. And what I learned after that from Diane Robbins is that capstone changes color every day. And depending on the day, that kind of sets the tone for the color scheme. Now, in retrospect, when I connected the dots, I was there on a Sunday. Sundays are white. That explains why the people that I saw there were garbed in white. If it would have been Wednesday, it would have been green. Would have been Saturday, would have been purple. Would have been cool to see those. So I'll be going back, and you can come along when your vibration matches, and we'll all see what color the day is together. It was amazing. Entities were made from crystal. There were temples you could clearly see. There were buildings that were situated to be that. And one in particular, off to the right of what I was saying, was circular and sat almost on this end of the city. Then he started to explain the nature of how many levels they occupied. While he was telling me about it, I'm trying to look up to determine where the light source is, because we're underground. We're inside the mountain. What's the light source? There's no sun up there, and there's no direct light. I can't even see the top of whatever this concave is. I can't see the top of it. However, the entire place is lit up like daylight, and there are no shadows that are being cast. It's crazy. So when you take in the magnificence of these structures and how they've been manifested together, and realize that these are higher dimensional beings, they're not stuck like we are. Yeah, we can manifest, but it's hard for us and it takes time. For them, no. They, as a body together, think through a solution and come up with a wonderful thing that works for the collective. It's just fabulous. That's their culture. This is what we have to look forward to next. We came down from where we were kind of elevated over and flying over to areas where I could make eye contact with a few people as we were going by. There were 5 or 6, I want to say, that I did. And every case, it was like I knew them. I knew who they were, and they knew me. Since then, there were 2 instances where I saw those people here. Exactly. So there's no doubt that I'm not the only one that has Lemurian connections. In fact, if you were to ask me my opinion, given what I understand about the cosmos and how things came here, I believe that we all passed through Lemuria. It was one of those root race parts of humanity that we certainly cycled through. So when you think of it that way, and believe that we've had past lives and reincarnations, then it's damn likely you were in Lemuria. So see what you can, get in connection with yourself and find out a lot more about yourself than you knew. I've had some people that could help me connect back to Lemuria and back to Atlantis. And actually, I want to tell you that I had listened to your recent interview with Judith. And Judith is an amazing Akashic librarian. When I listened to her explanation of galactic history, that was the best explanation that I've heard anybody put together to help connect the dots from where we were extraterrestrially until we are here in this form today. She was lovely. In fact, it was so good that I have some resources on my own website under news and information. Oh yeah, the link to that YouTube is now there now, because she just the revelation and the way that she laid it out for everyone to understand, that's fundamental information I believe people need to know. And then the rest of this can begin to make sense. You can't begin to get people to get on board with the idea that the earth was this experiment until they understand those concepts and who they are and what role they're playing. They still don't understand that they just put on this suit. They made an agreement to come here and learn some lessons. They are just engaged by everything else, the shiny bells and whistles around us, that it took their eye off the ball. But look at how much awakening is taking place now. People aren't settling for it anymore. And so when they say to me, the veil's being pulled back, look at all these institutions, like they're dismantling from the insides.
Absolutely.
They're heroic, and it's wonderful to watch.
It's incredible. And it's us doing it in frequency terms, because we are dismantling it from within ourselves, I feel. And so the more that do this work from inside and who are able to hold more love, more light, and come from these frequencies and then access these multidimensional capabilities that we are capable of having as we reach these higher frequencies, then the old will naturally dissolve. And so it's also seeing the connection in everything, that we are creating that. And that we all have a role and a purpose, and that we are all, like Judith was saying, part of this huge puzzle, this huge jigsaw, and that we're all in service to each other. Maybe some are unconscious of it at this time, but we are becoming more conscious to that. So I feel extremely privileged to be able to be here at this time, to witness what's occurring, and also to see how we are evolving from within ourselves too, that we chose to be the bridges to do that evolution from within ourselves and to see the magic unfolding as well. I know you love Andaras. I do too. And you saw these Andaras within the city as well. And I just wanted to ask you a little bit more about that, if you were explaining how they work and how they use them.
The whole wonder of fourth dimensional experiences, it can get me off track easy. So I don't want to not come back and talk about the Telos, because it is some magic and it's amazing. And I want to wait till I say I need to devote the time to go back and enjoy that environment again.
Yes.
But I know inside of me that the time when I get to be that emissary, and those beings that have been waiting to rejoin us on the surface, that is not that far away. So I take comfort in that idea, but I can't get there fast enough,
Yes.
So after we had gone and I saw these people that I recognized, that's when he took me down to the third level. There are 5 levels there. It's said, and I can't really account for it myself personally, but it's said that if you were to map the expanse of Telos. It's 25 square miles. That could very well be true, because I can't even tell you how high these places are. It was crazy. But I did see the third level, where the hydroponic gardens are and where they grow what everybody, ingests. And at first, my human mind wanted to comprehend what 7 acres, even properly engineered in this way, in such a way that it perpetuates itself quickly. How in the world does this feed everybody, especially if the numbers that has been proposed, that there are more like 1.2 million of them that occupy this space now? If that's possible, how does that do all that? It took me a while to go back to remember some of the other features of ascension, because there are physical features that are going on, right? Of course, we're ingesting new photon, plasma, energy, us little electromagnetic beings as well, just like the earth. We are too. When we feel that, and we decide to, get our chakras cleared and get ourselves in alignment so that we can connect to that in its pure form, wow, that kind of light you get to store and express. So when you were talking about how things were changing, it's because those of us that recognize this light's coming, we don't give our attention to anything. We don't even listen to negative stories anymore, because we know there's physics behind. Einstein told us that when we think about things, that's how they come about. Our thoughts become things, everything. So every expression you have, every place you place your attention is where that energy is going to get spread. If you're spending it listening to negative stories, guess what? You just fed your energy to that. I don't know that that's what you wanted, but until you become an observer of yourself and you realize that that's where your attention's going, you have to begin there.
Yes.
Okay, back to Telos. So when we finished, that led up to the fact that I know that we're changing from carbon-based features to we're going to be crystalline, which now when I think about that, it fully explains why they look so ageless and hundreds or thousands of years old. Quite possible, because this no longer deteriorates like it does in our carbon forms. But we're done with this experiment, as is the Earth. So even if we want to hang on to this experiment some more, there will be other places in the universe that you can play out third dimensional lessons. They're not going to be here on, and when New Earth has come along, that vibration doesn't match. There's no place for third dimensional density. It doesn't vibrate at the same frequency. So it fell off as it passed through. Think of it as this membrane that separated third dimension from fourth dimension. And if your vibration matched, you're in this bubble on the top. You came through like everything else. Your little liquid light body just flowed through and you materialized on the other side in this new form. If my vibration wasn't high enough, I didn't get through the membrane. So they're going to just recycle. They're going back to the spirit world and they're going to figure out their next contract, but they weren't ready to ascend. Mm-hmm. So that, I know that now that I understand that better, it's time for me to help others. But back to Telos. So when we finished at the third level, but anyway, that would explain why they probably don't eat as much. And think about it. They don't have digestive systems, because whatever energy they ingest, they use it all. That's, thank you, no bathrooms in the fourth and fifth dimension. So when we got back up to the main level, that room that I was telling you off to the side, that circular room, that's where we came back. So this craft plunked us down in front of this, and the entrance, this was crystal paneled, walls that made this circular temple. In the front, it had an opening wide enough as though it was intended for French doors, but it was just wide open. And I noticed immediately on either side, there were these, they appeared to be light codes that were etched in. They were different from one another, but again, I'd seen these things before. The first weekend I visited Shasta, never been to the place before. I got there in the middle of the afternoon, so it wasn't like I was going to go hike. So I thought, I'm going to walk along Main Street and, see what's here. Found a shop there called Blue Star Child Gallery. That's Haruko's gallery. And her delightful, colorful things drew me into the shop. It wasn't until a couple days later that I decided to come and really explore the things that she's done. When I left that day, I had turned to leave and noticed a drawing on the wall. The walls are 10 feet high, and this thing went from floor to ceiling, and it was 3 feet wide. It was perfectly symmetrical on both sides and looked like this really intricate code. There wasn't just this one. There were many on the walls. Then there were other places on the walls where her creative, playful, I love bunny side come out. That's much less structured, but oh my God, no less grand. So when I came back, she's got 3 sections of the store, and then the very back section, she had 4 at the time, 5 of these individual light code drawings back there. Mm-hmm. And it was meant to be in a meditative environment. When I saw it, it certainly was that day. And actually, when I got in there, I came out. I was the only one in the store that morning. I said, is it okay if I meditate back there for a little while? She goes, that's what it's for. Close the door and just absorb it. Anyway, I told you that story to tell you this story. On the left and right-hand side of the door, and the inside of that place, were these light codes she had drawn. They take months. She draws them all by hand. There are no straight edges she uses and no curvature tools that she uses. They're all by hand, and they're colored by hand. They take months. Anyway, I saw those drawings, and when I said, I think I've seen these here before, and Alex said, yeah, those are Haruko's. And they're so accurate that we decided to etch them here. This is the council chambers. And inside, there's a round table that seats 13. And it's beautiful. It's the only thing I've seen that is made out of wood. And of course, it's got crystal inlays and probably precious metal. But there's not much precious metal that they think is precious. Gold, silver, it's metal. Crystal is all, this is power. As I got in the room, however, there was a palpable energy that just struck you like almost in the chest. It was meant to hit your heart core. And it was like the most wonderful hug you've ever had. This is just, it's going to keep pressing in you the entire time you're in this room. So I'm sure a lot of things in the council chamber get worked out this way. If this is the feeling everyone in the room has, it's palpable. There was like almost, it felt like a compression on my chest that was just like a hug. I've had a couple of ayahuasca experiences, and whether Mother Ayahuasca put her arms around me and just held me like that, that's what this was. Just that feeling. Well, as I'm trying to take this in, 5 more people come into the room. I can tell that there are 4 females and a male. I recognize the male. It's a Dhamma. And everybody's taller than me in the room. But Adama's taller than them, so he's got to be 9 feet in stature. Incredible. The drawings of him do not do him justice. The other 4 were feminine council members. And so I was invited to pick a chair and seat myself. And then they situated themselves 3 on each side of me. I was about to begin to understand why I was brought here, kind of understand code, because they didn't really understand who I was until after this trip was over, until months later. The council had concluded that they agreed that the shift was imminent, and that the time when Earth's consciousness or humanity's consciousness would rise with Earth, that they would be at a frequency where they could now communicate with us. It's one of the things that fails people thinking that I wish I could talk to them. Well, you can't. If your frequency is risen and it matches theirs, that and everything around you is what you're going to experience. So that's what we need to find a way to accelerate helping people understand that. And man, I'm telling you, when I say that's inside of you, It's definitely inside of you. That happened in July of 2020. And so winter solstice was the time of the season that they also thought was imminent. Well, I couldn't believe my ears. I'm sitting there listening to things that I had already been led to believe on my own little, let's try and connect all these dots together. I believed that. And so now when I heard these beings thought the same thing, this is awesome. This is news that everybody needs to hear. So they said, with that, we want to prepare ourselves for the time that we want to be ready to integrate back with the surface people and share the technologies we've got and the humanity part that you've got. It'll be a wonderful thing when consciousness is risen to the point at which that can take place. And so I was there because, one, to them, I could already demonstrate, I could hold fifth dimensional consciousness and I could understand these concepts without letting the third dimensional duality and my ego step in the way. Two, is that they heard that I was already the protector of Gaia and that they were talking to the right guy. That was from an ayahuasca journey 2 years before. And then third is they didn't say they were seeking others, but here's where they asked me when the time came if I'd be willing to be an emissary that would help during this transition period and help integrate, help, decide, acclimate with that. Adama then spoke. I kind of skipped over who they were, and only because, honestly, if I had to tell you their names, I couldn't. Each one of them took the time to, tell me who they were and a little bit about themselves. But I only remember Adama because everyone knows him. I remember Alex because he kind of toured me around. And I remember the first woman, Shyama, because when this dialogue began, she chaired this part of the meeting. And so she was the spokesperson. Adama said that the council was unanimous on their position and that they had hoped that I would agree when the time came that I would agree to be an emissary. And so when they asked me if I'd agreed, I stammered a little bit. This is the first time I spoke because I'm just trying to take it all in. People asked me why my phone didn't work. Well, it went off in the first place, and that's how this whole thing triggered outside. Yeah, it wasn't going to work until I got back out anyhow. But when I said that I would be honored, the meeting was over. They got their answer and they thanked and bowed and off they went. In the meantime, I'm telling you, I can still feel whatever this love pulse that's in this room, it's still going on with me. So Alex and I finally make our way out. And now that this is complete, we go back to the staging area. And I've got two questions. One is, do I get to come back? The answer is yes. You'll get to come back before the shift. Okay, that's great, but it really didn't give me a hard, anything I can put on my calendar. And the second was, can I tell anybody else about this? Who can I tell? Is this supposed to be a secret? They said, no. You can tell anybody you wish. And the council even asked that question. They don't care who you tell. In fact, they want people to know that we're here. It's not like anybody's going to find their way here. You didn't without our assistance. That's how it's going to work. Now, there will be portals when the time comes that will be energy strategically placed. And they're all over the mountain. Believe me, I've felt them and I've found some of them. I know what they're talking about now. So it'll be easier for people to make passage into these areas that it's just elevated stuff that's around us now. That when your vibration matches, wow, you thought this was a wonderland? Wait till you see those kind of holographic colors and that kind of audio range that we typically don't have. That's what I get to experience now when the conditions are right. And now I'm supposed to help others get there.
Wow, Lowell. And you take us with us. It's such a beautiful, beautiful experience. And it reminds me actually of a few things. Last year, I was just resting and went into another state quickly and opened my eyes, and my feet were on the ground on this grassy area, but the grass was like it is in Hawaii and like it is here in Singapore, really thick grass. So it's the thick blades, it's not the really thin blades. So I was aware, I knew it was me, and I was looking ahead of me, and there was just greenery everywhere. And then there was this being, a man with this luminous sort of white yellow hair, very tall, in a robe. And I could see him clearly, but it was as if he was testing me out, and he was sort of just moving behind the tree just to check whether I was really seeing him. And in my mind, I was just saying, yes, I can see you, you're moving back and forth like this, and really aware that it was me there seeing this and in this new place. And it only lasted a few seconds. And then I came back to my room and where I was, but it was just a glimpse of entering another dimension and doing it from within ourselves. So I can only imagine that we will be able to do more and more of this. This will be becoming more of us tapping into our multi-dimensional selves. So really entering these other aspects of ourselves, or even taking ourselves to these other places, so that we are really able to teleport, or whatever these capabilities are, we are going to be tapping more and more into that. So that was just, I was still sort of flabbergasted for a long time, and I spoke to a friend about it. For me, I've always felt this Lemurian connection, this connection with something that's very pure, that's very sacred, and it's been the Lemurian frequency for me, and it's been very a divine feminine frequency as well. This heart palpitation, this heart connection that you speak of, that you felt in the chamber. And she was the one, she just mentioned, oh, that sounds like Adama to me. And I was like, oh, and then seeing an image later and thinking, really, could it have been? I don't know, but it was definitely something that I will remember, and just those little gateways and glimpses that we get as we move forward gradually, and raise in frequency, these little gifts that we get as well on the journey.
As I understand it, we watch the timelines go quicker. That's why these experiences are coming to us kind of like machine gun fashion. What I was reminding my son last week, because he'd said some dreams that he's now being able to, I have a little more recall. I said, you're going to help yourself a lot first if you begin to see those dreams as experiences you're having on timelines that you're just wandering down. Here is the beginning evidence of connections to dimensions beyond just this one. Don't ignore them. Those things were meant for you. Maybe that was the trigger you left behind for yourself to unlock the key to, been here before, because the time that Earth is going to rise into the next place where these things are common. We're co-creators with the ability to manifest immediately the things that we wish to have. Imagine that culture now, where we all understand we're part of one. We're all part of the collective. And when we benefit, everyone benefits. But we weren't meant to be marching soldiers. No. We weren't all meant to be the same. We have unique gifts. You have a unique gift like no one else. And so do I. And so those puzzle pieces, there's roles we're supposed to play. And the puzzle's not complete until we plug ourselves in to those particular places and then watch what the universe has unraveling for us. Yeah,
exactly. I am going to take you back to the Andaras again, just out of.
Oh, well, we could spend a whole nother hour talking about Andaras. But go ahead. You know, I love to talk about the topic. I've been fortunate to been around people that have been around Lady Nellie and the property that came off of. I've seen authentic stuff, and it's, forget that they're beautiful.
Yes.
When I learned more about, and I've always had a soft spot for crystals and things as I was younger. And as I got older, I can understand the benefit of individual crystals and what you could do when you programmed your intent. They could amplify that on your behalf. Well, Andaras, although they are crystal looking, are much more than that, because these things are consciousness. And yes, they have Akashic records of their own. And so imagine connecting your energy, because everything's always an energy exchange. You're going to exchange some of your records with her, or, you know, whatever that relationship is. And then she's going to give you what's meant for you. But when I say that, you're not limited to the resources within her Akashic records. She's connected every brother and sister on the planet. That's why they've been gridded on the planet now for decades. That was part of the plan. When they were shown to Nellie on her property, that was her intention. She didn't know anything more about it other than she just felt as though they were supposed to be all over the planet. And so, yep, mission accomplished.
Yes, yes. And you saw them in Telos.
I saw
Andaras. Did you see Andaras in the city?
There were. You have to think that I think that most of the crystal that they use, to me, looked like it was either labradorite, but that could have been just me. I mean, it just was so beautiful and shiny. But I saw lots of Andara crystal. I thought that was manifested into the architecture. I believe that, look, it's prima matra.
Yes.
In its form before this, it's Ethereum. And, you know, you can boil it down to whatever you want. You can make gold out of it because that's one feature of it. But Ethereum's got a whole lot more in it than that. It has the ability to unlock DNA. And you don't need to ingest Ethereum to get the same results as having an Andara, you know, at your disposal, whether you wear it or hold it. That same energy, this is the fused result of Ethereum. When the Earth's forces changes all that dynamic in this material that was, frankly, this is not Earth stuff. This was planted here in a couple places. It seems to be well known that it was in the Sierras. Nobody but a handful of people knows exactly where Nellie's property is, and it'll remain that way even though she's not alive. There seems to be a vein of it that people are aware of in South Africa that they don't talk about because it's close to a diamond mine. But it's also been suggested through some channeling that there are other pockets of this in other places, that when the time comes, it'll be revealed. And again, I don't say that you need this to ascend, but I can tell you from personal experience, it's definitely an accelerator.
Yes, and it makes things much more fun. They're so beautiful. So
you just get access to things you knew before, and you just don't know how. You know, after a while, you don't care. You just want to know.
Yes. I wanted to touch upon the work that you have done since these experiences too, because you have stepped more into roles of being a protector of Gaia and your grid working roles. And I will be creating a little video at the beginning of our conversation and at the end, putting a little montage of the images that you've taken over the past recent years, which have these incredible light frequencies, rainbow frequencies, crystalline frequencies, all around the areas that you are there working and connecting with the land. And it just, it just fills me with delight and excitement, because it's just a confirmation of these higher frequencies and the way that our energies are changing and expanding too, and your relationship with the energies of Gaia and yourself merging as well. So it's like a double whammy of activations and light occurring, and that we get to see it in these images as well.
Yeah, that was the interesting part. And it's been suggested that when all this began to happen with me, and I asked the questions, well, why with me? And so somebody hypothesized that maybe you're just a regular guy, Lowell, and you weren't, really following a spiritual path for 20 years, but somehow something connected with you. You're just a regular guy like the rest of us, that when these interesting phenomena would happen with me, and I began to tell these stories, that perhaps no one is going to fight so hard to disclose these things any longer. And not just me, but certainly all those people that have had experiences before I came along will finally now be taken with more respect and a little more truth, instead of these people that had been characterized as something other than sound-minded, because they didn't want this truth to get out there. But the fact of the matter is, my experiences with those were light beings. Those are 6-dimensional light beings. They're around us all the time, all of us. They're just waiting for the environment to be right, for them to show themselves to us and pass physically. That was a baton that got passed. There was light energy that I took on that day when they were there, and I could feel it. So that is now to assist me to transmute negative energy into dark. Man, I just got supercharged with different kind of light. Now, I need to find the way to help others, to get them to that place. When those photographs were taken, the first time, because that was taken in 2 different instances. The first time when they were sent to me after the fact, she said, these are for your portfolio. And I went, what does that mean? One day when you start to tell your stories, you're going to have pictures of what happened to you. Instead of people just having to believe your word, have a look for yourselves. And now I'm not here to convince anybody anymore, but the pictures I put on the website were meant for everyone to see. There were some things that I wished I could share with others. I saw artifacts that were 30,000 years old. Amazing. In my contacts and my interactions with my guides, and what I got to have medicine out of, these things had Anunnaki markings on them. I wish I could share them with others. Maybe one day I will. But for right now, this is all the proof I ever needed. And when I can, I will share those things with others, because like I was talking about before, it was time for me to share what's happened with me and things that I know with others, so that they're aware that it's likely to happen to them too. I'm not, in my mind, the only emissary to tell us when the time comes. By the way, when it finally all sunk in, it was the following April, after that July, that I'd come in to meet Ruben and Bill. And one of the people I met was a guy named Matthew Bueno, who lives in Mount Shasta. He's indigenous. His family's lived there for generations. So he's had experiences, and he's in tune spiritually with the area. Well, after I was with him for those 4 days, he said, you know why they invited you in? And I said, no, you have some insight. I'd love to share it with me. He said, well, you're one of them. And then it just kind of hit me like a brick. Yes, I had been in Telos before, and I was beginning to remember who I was and what I did. And so when I went back in, I was hoping when I returned in April for that 4 days I was going to be there, to find a half a day I could get back up to the spot, just feel its energy. But the road was still closed because of snow. And yeah, I could get there, but I'm going to have to hike from Bunny Flat. So I don't have time for that, but I'm going to come back soon. So I did at the end of May, and the road was still closed. So I made the hike. It took me 4 hours to get there. But when I did, It took me 4 hours because I saw energetic portals along the way,
Mhm.
but I tagged them this time. Everybody carries a compass on their iPhone, so I just took a screenshot. Every place I saw this stuff that was off the grid, people could find it, but it looked like these were areas that were inviting. When I finally got to the spot, remember that kind of cutout that I saw when I turned around? This time as I approached, I could see that energetically, like it was still there. And so when I went up and postured myself, it didn't look at that luster. So I assumed I'm going to turn around, I'm going to face the parking lot like I did. And this time of year, I hiked alone. There's nobody here. As soon as I look this way and I begin to plant my light, I feel a breeze from behind me again. And when I turn around, this opening is there, but Shyama, the woman that I had met, there she stands in the entrance. And I wondered to myself, only as a thought, why don't you just step out? And I knew the answer to that before she would even have had a chance to answer. She would have to drop her vibration to step into the third dimension. Why would anybody do that? She said, well, you did. Yes, I guess I did. We talked about a number of things there and where we thought things were going. But basically, we spent about the last 15 minutes just looking at that area in Shasta and knowing that this view in the third dimension is finite. And maybe this might be the last time I get to appreciate it this way all by myself. It was cool.
Oh, Lowell. And now for this time, new things are continually opening up for you. You're stepping into these new roles, becoming an ascension guide for others to assist, being a pathway. This is just such a beautiful, I mean, it's just, we don't get to see beforehand what is to come. And I love that, these surprises, these expansions. So how are you feeling about how everything is unfolding and what is to come for you?
You can't prepare for any of it. If you really want to remain open to just let the universe allow. And man, it's shown me so many amazing things. I do, but there's these lulls in between. I'm a Capricorn. We don't sit still very well. But I remind myself that this is just part of the process and just kind of take it in, see it from a higher perspective, and that there's a grand plan and you know what's coming. So just let it unfold the way that it's supposed to unfold. I've been in New Mexico. Zan had some family. There was a loss in the family. So between February and March, the end of February, March, and April, we've been in Arizona and New Mexico. But in some of these areas I've been in, one in particular, 5 acres that belongs to a family member, he's had some experiences like many others did in that area of New Mexico, and at that elevation, they've had contact with spirits. John's experiences at the time where he was vulnerable were negative and dark. And although he realizes now that he has a connection to that other dimension, he's been burned by the dark side that he doesn't want to go there. So it's going to be a time for him. He's aware, and that's a wonderful thing. But now he just shut himself out from any kind of divinity connection that the guy clearly has. While I was there, and we were there for 4 or 5 days, one of the nights, it was going to be cold. It was going to be 15 degrees, and there was actually going to be 3 or 4 inches of snow on the ground by the morning. Now, he doesn't have blackout shades, but it doesn't matter, because through the shears, you can kind of see the night sky from where we are unabated. There's no ground lights, and there's nothing to get in the way. But one night, I was kind of cuddled in the fetal position because that's how I get warm. And as I was sitting there, something hit the window like a headlight, except the neighbor's property next to us wouldn't have been situated in a way that a car would have pointed itself at the house from over there. It just wasn't. And so when I warmed up, I finally rolled over on my back because that's how I cool over. That's my process. And when this happened, that orb that was outside came inside and hovered over me. Well, it was a being who had also apparently he was just stuck. He had been influenced by dark beings like John and came around because he just needed a little extra boost of light to just get him from where he was to transmute that part of it so that he could move on to wherever he was going next. Well, I gave the intent that if there was light within my aura that'll satisfy that, you're welcome to it. And away he went. So I got cold again and I rolled over and I warmed up again and the process began again. I turned over to get cool and here was another one. By the end of the evening, which apparently I didn't sleep much, like by 5 a.m, this had happened 8 or 9 times. So it was like maybe I saw like this line of these light beings that were just, their energy was stuck, that they just needed some light boost. Well, those of us that are carrying light, that's what we're carrying it for, is to express it. We're all capacitors. We take in this wonderful light energies just so that we can express it out again. And clearly these people needed it, but that's the kind of work that I've been ending up doing. Now, how do you put that on your calendar or your to-do list? Oh my God.
Wow. And also it's key because people speak often about we need to raise our vibrations, raise our frequencies. But when we actually feel into it and understand what it really means, why do we have to do that? Well, this is why, because we have new capabilities and abilities just waiting for us. But we have to reach those frequencies from inside. And also seeing into the density. But when we raise our frequencies, we'll just see more magic and more luminous colors and more vibrancies and more connection with these beings and everything else too. So it is it's the key really. This is why we are on this journey. This is why we want to raise our frequencies.
You know, I know that if I could take this out of my head and place it on YouTube, I'd have everybody's attention if they could have seen the things that I've seen in Telos in that way. My answer, and I know I didn't understand the way to get there, but you can all do the same thing and see the same things and have the same experiences when you're in tune with that frequency. Over the last couple of weeks when all this kind of seemed to line up, because during the interviews with all these fabulous things I can tell you I can do, people go, well, yeah, what can you tell us? And I go, I don't know. Now I know, because where I got the information that helped me understand how to connect back to that stuff. It's not new information. It's restored abilities that we've got that's just kind of cracking open. And seems to be that this light energy that's coming is doing that very thing. It's seeding itself to assist our DNA to open itself back up to the strands that remember the abilities we had before. Here we go. That's how I feel things are happening. So I know with me, that's my explanation. That's how in my little 3D human mind, I can make sense of things that are beyond our capacity to really understand. But don't let that get in the way of thinking that you want to have a miracle and then say, no, you can't, it can't be. You ask for it. Believe me when I tell you, they're going to deliver. And in ways you don't see coming.
Lowell, you have been a treasure trove of light. Thank you so much for allowing us to connect with this beautiful conversation. And it's been an absolute joy and a delight to be able to connect with you and hear about all your incredible experiences. I'm really excited about the things that are coming to you too. It's going to be beautiful.
Stay tuned, pal. We're all in this together, and it's just wonderful to find more tribe and who they are in your orbit. I see things as there's just a demeanor that you find with some people that's just so natural. Well, I know now that that's not someone new I met. No, I knew them in another incarnation too. this is just where journeys cross paths again. And now it's kind of a restoration of, well, yeah, we were just away from one another, learning different lessons. Here we are again to assist her. So might be for a day, might be for a while, but it's always nice when you recognize people that are in tune, so that we can have these discussions. That was the hardest part of the journey. Where do I find a touchstone that can help me understand what I'm going through before I presume that I am in any place to be able to help anybody else?
Well, you are, and you are a true light of inspiration. So big love to you, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Namaste. See you soon.